right now, where are we? And Ben had kind of pointed to this. Are we looking at this AI possibility as something that's going to bring on the AI apocalypse? Or are we looking at this as a technology area that can lead to a revolution that can really augment what people can do? Are we afraid that the cyborgs are going to be harvesting our life energy for their universal takeover? Or are we looking at an area that has been fostered by human innovation and really serves humanity on some level? Well, let's take a look at one very clear, very known example that all of us have probably participated in, and see how AI has impacted humanity in that business. So take a look at the example of Uber, okay? Is it involved? How did they use their data, and how do they use AI solutions? Does it lead to destruction, or does it lead to creation? Well, I personally have a little stake in this. I used to be a taxi driver, one of my many jobs in life. So I drove taxi for a year out in San Francisco, and got the experience of being, one of many tens of millions of people who make money driving in this country, right? Clearly, I feel empathy for my brothers and sisters in the yellow cab nowadays who've had to suffer through what innovation brought to the taxi world. But on the pro side, has it built new opportunities for more people? And I would say that yes, it has created new opportunities. It's reduced fraud. It's reduced risk potentially by leveraging data. It's improved safety for the riders as well as the drivers. And it's optimized the reality of those drivers and those riders, made it easier to get from point A to point B. So my question is, what has AI done in this context? Well, Uber uses AI for just about everything. To quote their director of product, Jarmar Rangantham, they use AI in all parts of the application. They don't even think about AI. It's permeated through the way they do business. And as a result, they can achieve great things. Now that's just one industry, one kind of use case, which is to optimize getting people from point A to point B. But the reality is that there's, in any enterprise, AI can transform everything. It's not some one gigantic initiative that happens that all of a sudden transforms the business. It's about looking at augmenting what human beings do across the board. In fact, wherever we look and we see AI going at and trying to replace people's jobs, what do we find? We find that the real value is in combining the human and the AI, the human and the machine together to achieve new incredible outcomes. So take the example of the radiologist. Maybe many of you have heard this concept before. Radiologists on their own historically are, maybe in the high 80s to low 90% accurate in being able to detect signs of potential malignancy that's happening within a radiogram. Now, when you send a pure ML solution to scan the imprints of radiologists and detect problems in those, they're in the mid 90s in terms of reliability. They can be 93 to 95% reliable. But guess what happens when you put humans and machines together? You get to somewhere close to 5.9s or 98% of accuracy in identifying problems in that radiograph. So now you've got a place where you've just saved 3% more people's lives potentially. So huge improvement by combining human and machines, computing the capabilities of our innovation with AI and ML with what we can do as people. So so just to cut to the chase, we're at that place where I think the industry sees that by combining AI with people, we get to a better place. We create a better place for our customers, and we create a better place for humanity, potentially. I like this quote from a very recent book by Kevin Scott, the CTO of Microsoft. It's a book called Reprogramming the American Dream. He's a guy that came from the country out in the sticks of Virginia. I live just down here in the sticks of North Georgia. There's always this concern that automation is just chewing up people's jobs. But the real promise, and I feel this, the real promise of AI is it's a tool that empowers us to do more of what makes us human, right? So I would like us to assume that that's the case, that AI is here and we can control the impacts that it has. Highly advise you guys to read the book. It's very inspirational. To me, it sets the right tone for what can be done by combining AI and people and making sure that AI is responsive to what we want to have happen. Now, getting to that place where an organization truly embraces AI, there are challenges for sure. And I like to think of those challenges as through these three different lenses. So there's the data story, right? An organization needs to get a true understanding of their data. And I think for the most part, data is a challenge for those organizations. They send data. What's been happening over the last decade is organizations have been getting data scientists on their teams, but what do those data scientists end up doing? Because of the maturity level of that organization, a lot of times the data is not high quality and it's hard to get at. And as a result, data scientists, very expensive people, are doing data wrangling, data cleaning, data munging 80% of their time. So very low value for that investment in a data science potentially at this point, because the organization hasn't embraced it. And the organization doesn't, the people don't necessarily trust. Like we said, there are still people who are concerned that AI is out there to get their jobs, right? And so that has to be addressed in the across the organization to build the trust that's required to be a data-driven company. And now there's a bigger problem, particularly in areas like here up in North Georgia, where I'm from, or in Louisville, where you guys are. There's a need to get the talent here and from outside to want to come in to this region in order to drive the technical solutions that we're looking at putting together. So there's a massive shortage in data and AI talent currently, particularly in areas like where we're all from, right? And so an AI organization has to address this talent problem, the trust problem, and get their arms entirely wrapped around the data and analytics story. So when it comes down to it, what does an organization need to become AI powered? They need a holistic strategy around AI, not just a single use, not just thinking I'm going to be Uber and I'm going to crush the taxi industry with one use case, but they need to look at everything. And in fact, Uber does this. They look across the supply chain management, things that are happening out in the field, and fraud, and bringing concepts of fraud prevention. It's a big use that Uber uses, for example, to avoid in their commerce system. Healthcare organizations might also be looking at that patient care, but ultimately what you need is to define an overarching AI strategy that enables transformation throughout the organization. Now, to make this happen, you need a long-term strategy that is capable of meeting the complex needs of the entire organization, and that takes the whole team to put together. So creating this can be a challenge. You first need to incubate new ideas to identify and test and scale where innovation can bring new either income, new revenue streams, or performance improvements. You need to also make sure your primary revenue streams are not being tanked. That's the biggest challenge around transformation. How do you build the new ship, the new plane, while you're flying the old plane? It's a struggle that everybody has to be sensitive towards, and it's a whole team kind of organization. And you have to also make sure that your cost centers like marketing, manufacturing, and customer service are running as efficiently as possible. So in order to bring on this transformation, we believe that you need to have AI embedded in all the applications and the processes and down to every employee in the organization. They need to be comfortable with AI, the terms and terminology, the outcomes that can be produced by it rather than being in a fearful state. So the logical place to start might be with the technical teams, but there's a risk in that. If you start with the technical teams, what can happen? Oftentimes, and you'll hear me use this term from time to time, we end up in what's called AI proof of concept purgatory, where an AI solution is happening in a little isolated patch in your organization, but there's no means to scale. There's no overarching strategy to scale AI solutions across the organization. So in order to further this, you need to look across outside of just the technical folks. You need to look at the whole workforce and how it engages the data. And without them, without the leadership as a part of your talent strategy, the data handlers and the front line, you really risk this, what I just described, which is that AI proof of concept purgatory, where you're experimenting but never going to scale. So leaders get involved from a fostering of data-driven culture perspective. The managers are optimizing the business using that data. And then you have your data professionals and your developers. Then you also have the front line that is close to the products, the processes, and the people, and the processes that run the business. They need to be an essential part of your data estate, so to speak. And then there's the machines themselves. Now, with regards to building an AI and data-driven powered organization, there are new roles emerging as well. That of the data citizen, if you've heard that concept, it's someone who's data savvy and able to be a collaborative part of driving an AI-powered organization, or the citizen developer that's now in the role of using low-code and no-code solutions in order to do more with their data today. And then there's an emerging role we call the AI translator. The AI translator plays a pivotal place of being the nexus between the domain owners, the frontline workers, the managers that know their systems, and then the AI production development team that's in the back end. Somebody that can play a role of matching business outcome needs to the actual solution. So these are emerging roles that every organization will need to have. When you look at truly embracing AI, we talk about it as starting with leadership, but every layer of the organization is involved in AI. The leaders might be driving that AI solution to meet the needs of the business imperatives, but then there's a team that's developing AI solutions to execute on that strategy. There's business units that are applying it, whether in marketing or in some customer-facing function. And then there's the end consumers, perhaps workers in a factory setting who are consuming that AI solution and leveraging that data in real time. So to get to this place, you have all these different roles and they're engaged in the data enterprise. There's data inputs coming from IoT, for example, in the manufacturing setting, from big data lakes, from the websites, and from your customer data and your employees' insights. But ultimately, they're a part of this machine, this new functionality within a company, within a data-driven company that has data science at the heart, and that everyone's collaborating to produce this outcome, leveraging these insights, running through the structured process of data science, creating the machine learning and deep learning models, and then experimentation and getting that and continuing that feedback loop. So how did these, so if you look at it, this organization could be organized in there's a lot of different ways this can lay out. This is one just example of an AI team. The team works to take the customer product and process inputs, determines if there's a good solution fit, translates the requirements to the AI team. There's engineering that happens, and there's collaboration across these various roles. Within the context of a truly functional AI-powered organization, you can look at the C-suite as establishing a data and AI strategy, driving innovation through those AI teams, and then applying that in those different roles. So in a true AI-powered company, the whole organization is involved. The C-suite understands the strategy and understands how the people are participating in it. So to get here, you need to start with the data. You need to create a data-driven culture. So what is a data-driven culture? It's a term that gets used a lot. I like to think of it as breaking down into these kind of 3 different key requirements. Data needs to be treated as an organizational asset. In other words, everyone's got to change the lens and understand that it's not just your data, but it's data that is that can have an impact across your organization. So you have to break down those silos and you have to liberate the data in a sense. So data also needs to be democratized and made available. And I'll share with you some of what the vendors that I work with are doing to democratize that data, to bring tools into the hands of everybody to leverage that data effectively and in a secure fashion so that they can produce new outcomes. And obviously, you need to, in a data-driven organization, put that data to work. So what's the work of data? It's running through the process of learning, using machine learning to produce new insights. That's ultimately what's happening. It can be done in multiple ways. The helper applications that the vendors are producing can make it easy. You can sometimes get away with not having an ML team potentially by leveraging what the vendors are producing, or you can go full on in and produce your own machine learning models. Wrapping around all this in a data-driven organization are some key principles that also need to be embraced. You need to empower the workers to use that data. You need to make sure you're thinking from an inclusivity perspective, that you're rooting out potential bias in the AI solutions and the data and the machine learning models that are being built. And to that point, you need to have a view on responsible AI. We have programs that really teach the foundations around this, and I can guide you after this to how to ensure your organization embraces these principles effectively. Now, in terms of where to start, we believe that to build a data-driven culture, you need to think from the concept of your people and from what competencies you need your people to have and what competencies your organization needs. Those competencies should align with your AI strategy. And loosely, we see them breaking down in these different buckets. We believe that data literacy is a key piece, understanding the role of data in the business, and then giving the skills of everybody to be able to identify and classify and get at the fitness, understand the quality of that data. You also need basic competencies around AI literacy, the basic terms and terminology, because these are the tools that every organization is going to need to be successful and competitive going forward. There are key 21st century business skills like collaboration, creativity, critical thinking that also need to be driven across the organization to truly become data-driven. And of course, there are new mindsets that we've all heard a little bit about: adaptability, resiliency, being able to do design thinking and storytelling as an organization, also foster the right kinds of mindsets. And of course, there's technical competencies that need to be identified based on what the technical competencies that particular role needs within the organization. So now, how do you pull these competencies through the organization? And I would argue that it's not rocket science, and you can do it yourselves, and we can help you, and our organizations like Fastlane can help you as well. But it comes down to this: you define your competency framework, you define the roles that your company is targeting. So what's the state that you want your people to be in down the road? What's going to make for a data-driven, AI-powered organization? Then you assess, where are our people right now? And you create a learning strategy that takes them from where they are to where they're going. I know, brilliant, pretty straightforward, right? Where I think we provide where I can provide you some guidance on this, however, is that at this day and age, think about it. Your people are in a situation where they are continually forgetting what they learned last year and learning something new. So the goal should be continual learning, right? Now, how do you do that in a world that's moving so fast? I believe that part of it is, and also there's a lot of time investment. You need that learning strategy to be very tight. You need to be very conscientious of your people's time. And you need to look at the resources that are out there and figure out, are there ways of executing on that objective without having to build it from scratch? And in fact, there are lots of ways of doing that. We've been focused on building learning systems that curates contents from the vendors, from open source capabilities, and that allows you to continually curate and build out the right learning strategies as things evolve, right? So I advise, to get to a data-driven culture, part of it is building learning strategies that leverage existing resources and that curate and tailor the learning strategies based on the roles that they're in. Lastly, in this build out of a data-driven culture, I advise of thinking in terms of team competencies, because cross-functional collaboration is it. That's how you co-create the right solutions for your organization. Not any one individual's got the answer. Building a team competency around cross-functional collaboration is critical. And the a great way of ensuring that cross-functional collaboration is building learning journeys that pull together IT and operations, leadership and line workers to work through both the mindset elements, the technical elements, and the business elements, so that they're all developing a common language and executing on the strategy within the context of the learning. More important than all of this is a company needs a change management principle. And I'll just defer to Cotter in this regard. I put a link here at the bottom. Every organization, in order to embrace AI, there's no doing it without having a mature approach to change management, to being able to bring on new approaches and move it across the organization. Anything less than really being tight about your change management is hoping that you're going to score the big AI solution, even if the company doesn't have all of their, the wherewithal to do it. But that being said, definitely change management is key. And also looking towards celebrating those early wins and then scaling it out is also a key piece of it. Now, one great way to instantiate this data-driven culture is what we call the Data and AI Academy, okay? So as organizations are evolving, what we see is you need to build a continual learning capability inside your organization. Now, this concept of a Data and AI Academy does more than just that, of continually providing a mechanism for training people on the latest and greatest. What it also does is it positions your enterprise as an enterprise that is digitally savvy, that can attract and retain the talent because you're caring about their digital skills. So we're a firm believer in leveraging the concept of a data academy in order to instantiate a data-driven culture in your organization. And we can advise you on how to do this. There's some very clear steps that I can provide you on going from developing your AI and data strategy to matching it to a digital talent strategy, and then instantiate it in the context of a corporate academy. So in this move towards a data-driven, AI-powered organization, it's very helpful, as I mentioned, to curate solutions and to curate the learning journeys. Well, what I'm seeing is that there's ample opportunities on a regular basis. I think just yesterday, Microsoft had their Microsoft Ignite event and announced a whole bunch of other new things that help democratize data. So whether it's Microsoft Azure, the Google Cloud, or Amazon's web services on AWS, they're creating the context and providing the tools to truly bring the power of data and AI to everybody in an organization. One of my favorite things is that Microsoft's Excel. Raise your hand if you've ever used it. And I'm just being facetious because everybody in business uses Microsoft Excel pretty much. It is a common tool that everybody can use. Well, now you can use Excel to initiate automatic machine learning processes. And we actually built a program that addresses how do you take basic business analysts and data analysts in your business and managers that need to be able to crunch the numbers, leverage Excel to also leverage machine learning in the back end. Microsoft's also built out things like cognitive services, pre-built neural networks that can be leveraged and dropped into application environments in order to get natural language processing or text-to-speech happening in a very quick fashion. And the other vendors have done a great job as well, continually innovating, democratizing data, and empowering your potential employees to do the right thing with that data. And I'm not going to read through all this, but I'm happy to share with you some of what we're seeing in the market. Fastlane believes these tools are critical, empowering the whole company to get involved with the data, within this data revolution that's happened. And we've actually created some novel solutions ourselves that leverage what these vendors are doing, but really empower the non-technical side of your staff to do more with data. We call it our Data Skills for Everybody portfolio. And it's things like fun ways of bringing the power of data science to the rest of the team, to the non-data scientists on your team. So we have a flexible curriculum we call the Zombie Apocalypse curriculum that takes the team through leveraging data about where the zombies are and what's happening in terms of growth rates and things of that nature, leverages data science in order to protect the humanity from the zombie apocalypse. So there's very fun ways of bringing data science to your organization. We also, I work with Microsoft globally to provide the AI business school to corporations. So that's another great way of engaging leadership in understanding the possibilities of AI, in understanding how to build an AI strategy and how to execute on it. And there's a lot of very specific to industries like manufacturing and healthcare that we can support in that AI business school program. We also have courses like the machine learning for everybody, predictive analytics for everybody, and data analytics for everybody courses that use very simple tools, and within a day or a couple of half days, really empower every user to understand how to use common tools like Excel and the R language, which is really just kind of SQL structure, in order to leverage machine learning. So now how do you pull together a comprehensive structured talent strategy that's aligned to the company's digital business imperatives? And that's where Fastlane and Tandem have partnered to provide to customers in your area the concept of AI for everybody. This is a comprehensive program that leverages decades of success in high performance focused AI Academy design, development, and delivery. And what we do is we provide guidance to leadership, help them understand the art of the possible, perform assessments across the organization, and help them craft a talent strategy for that organization that builds the digital talent to execute on today's needs and positions the company to attract the talent for tomorrow. You can see some of the associated programs that we provide here. That we do an AI talent assessment. We do AI talent development, where we build out custom programs that support your needs. And we even support you in instantiating an AI academy, connecting with the local resources like academic resources, making that connection, building the strategies that will allow you to really manage and execute in an accelerated fashion on your AI talent and data talent strategy. To support that, we've built out sort of a badging and certification structure that it looks at all different roles within an organization, whether they're frontline workers or technical teams, project managers that become the next AI translators, for example, or the HR folks in your organization that need to build out a talent strategy that is going to attract that talent and maintain that talent and grow that talent within your organization. And we can help you co-create the right kind of learning journeys that produce these end outcomes, leveraging these badges and these different programs that we have to support the badging and certification. So the concept of building out this AI talent strategy is really simple. We come in and we support you on the design. We can help you on the delivery of the actual training. We can help you scale it across your organization. So that's in a nutshell some of the things we do to help drive data and AI-powered organizations. Now I think we can pause. I think, how's my timing? Hey, we did pretty good on timing, about 40 minutes. This would possibly be a good time for any kind of questions or conversations we want to have. Last thing I wanted to share with you. I'm Barry Kaufman. You can reach out to me, and you can also reach out to my colleague, Tyler Young at Tandem locally, to talk about any follow-up activities. In fact, anybody that's attending today that would like to go through the process of assessing where your enterprise is in terms of AI and digital transformation readiness, we've built out an assessment tool, a survey that we can provide to you. And then we can, as long as you'll come back, and we'll have an hour consultation to kind of review where your organization is and to provide you some guidance. So that would be my last thing to call to action. Is if you're interested in finding out more and doing a deeper dive into where your company is in terms of AI and digital transformation readiness, please do reach out and so we can have a follow-on conversation. And now I'll pause and see if there's time for any questions or comments.
Thanks, Barry. I definitely a lot here. So I know I have some questions, but I'm going to open it up and see if any of the people in our audience here would want to lead off with some questions. You can either stick them in the chat or you can unmute. All right, well, I want to start with some of the pieces you teed up in terms of AI for everyone. Because I think, as we think through how do we be sure that we have a workforce and a talent pool that's really ready, I think a lot of the things that organizations struggle with is, I don't know, it's the chicken and egg. I don't know, like, where do I start with the people who will know how to do this, or the data that they're going to need we want them to analyze? Like, how do you recommend organizations start to think about that?
Well, nothing starts without leadership making an initiative. If you are not in a position of influence on the enterprise level, one way of starting is to do a holistic business unit level program where you are proving the concept of cross-team collaboration, at ideating, at uncovering the possible, and then getting to the place of a POC, creating that AI proof of concept within that business unit, but making sure that the outcome of it is to inspire enterprise level leadership, because nothing will scale without that. So my suggestion again would be, you're either influencing leadership to really embrace data and AI and move towards an AI strategy. And we have some of the right tools with, for example, the Microsoft AI Business School to help you create that capability, or take that same concept at the BU level. Maybe it's marketing, maybe it's customer service, where there's great cognitive services that can support that, like chat bots that can be quickly brought in, demonstrate the value that it produces, make sure that everybody from the customer service agent that's involved in that use case to the manager that is managing the margin on that line, that cost center, make sure that they know how to articulate the value that was produced and can champion it. That's where I would go.
Great question in the chat from Natalie. So how do you see the social service sector being able to build capacity and interest to make this a part of finding actual long-term solutions to systemic problems we've had forever? What a great question, Natalie.
Yeah, and Ben, you might have some insights as well. I see the work, I see that right now, enterprises, large businesses like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Cisco, and many others, at the Fortune 2000, the Global 2000, are focused on corporate responsibility type of programming. They're doing that because they understand what's happening in the world right now, and they see that there certainly are challenges. So I see that social services can collaborate with business to produce the skilling opportunities that can support this. We're involved in, for example, helping upskill vets in the LA County. That's just one project we're involved in. We're doing more also in Europe to basically help them build the data acumen for entry-level positions. And that is working with social service out of LA County. So I see, but it's also sponsored by Microsoft. So I say cross-academic, civil, civil government and enterprise collaboration is key to bring everybody along. I hope that answers the question. I'm sorry if I meandered.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Lucas, what advice or resources would you want to suggest for entrepreneurs who are looking to build their organization around data and AI?
So I
Great
guess
question.
I'm oftentimes dealing with companies that have lots of legacy baggage. Startups and entrepreneurs can kind of jump the shark, I guess. They can move directly into a digital native approach to things. I would say that you're in the wonderful position of being able to choose who you hire into that organization, choose who you bring in. And I would establish, as we said earlier, you want a data-driven company. You want everybody to be data savvy and really data obsessed and ultimately customer obsessed. But by being data obsessed, that means that you're hiring people who are also creative, who are innovative. And so I would say that the key thing is to know what competencies, so have a competency framework in mind when you start that organization and hire against that competency framework. So hope that's helpful.
So lots of educators, how can AI and automation help within education, and how do you think about those right software routes to go?
I think with all businesses, we are at day one of what AI will do. Within the context of education, I think we all, I'll throw out for us educators some common concepts. There's a 70-20-10 concept, right? 10% of learning happens in formal education, 20% is through cross collaboration with your peers, and 70% is OJT, right? It's on the job. It's actually getting the skills. So I see AI and data science and data approaches as being able to bring more of that skilling and training into the workflow. And that's, for example, there are AI tools, right, that leverage data and allow for visualization using mixed reality, right? Mixed reality tools ultimately that are pulling through data and leveraging AI to some degree. And those can totally transform the training space. Obviously, and the education world. Obviously, COVID has also run a number on us, right? In that educators have had to deal with, particularly in the, maybe depends on the adult learners. In some cases, adult learners, but young learners having to do everything virtually. AI can allow for things where you're expanding that virtual experience to bring in more collaborative experiences. So I anticipate that AI solutions will allow for working remotely or learning remotely, but learning as a team and putting that team learning experience together. So that's one of my hopes, but there's a lot of hopes for what AI could do for every different line of business, and the education sector will be transformed unrecognizably over the next decade, my guess.
Yeah. Well, we do have an interesting combination of companies, educators, and trainees. I'd love if someone could talk a little bit about sort of how those things interconnect.
I think one of the things, hi, I'm Heather Worrell. I lead the digital innovation strategy for JCPS. So thanks so much, Barry and Ben, for this great presentation. I think one of the things that we're looking to do is really get a strong understanding about current AI and the future of AI, and make sure that we are providing opportunities for kids to have exposure to this now in this K-12 pipeline that we're building. And so as much as we can, I've even assigned an AI person on the team just to stay abreast as to the new developments on this front. So I just think it's imperative that whatever we do, that K-12 tech talent pipeline piece, we have to move together with the corporate piece, or the community and business piece, to make sure that we are preparing the kids to meet, that have the skill set to be prepared to enter those jobs. And I know specifically in this region in Kentucky, there is a huge gap and lack of tech talent ready to assume data processing roles and making sure they have the certifications. And I know that James Moore is here, and he leads our 9-12 strategy, but I really believe that we got to get started much earlier in getting kids interested and involved in these types of career passions. So that's something we'll be working to do in JCPS, is providing opportunities and exposure and understanding around the future of AI, as soon as we can, all the way through those high school pathways, so that they're ready for you guys.
Heather,
we
you
want
should
our kids to be ready to meet that.
It sounds like you're doing all the right stuff. By getting somebody to focus on that AI, that's a great start. I would say build an AI evangelist team among you educators to take what those learnings are and to constantly be inspiring that team and constantly be inspiring your students. But gives me shivers to think of what you guys are doing with those kids in the background there. They are the future. So thank you for your comments.
And I just wanted to throw this out there, James, real quick, because I definitely want you to chime in as well, but I just want to make a specific point about underrepresented populations with women and minorities. And we have a big passion for providing programming that allows for those student population groups to have access to programs that will then align to these pathways. So James is on our team, and he really hits the high school pathway entry point. Go ahead, James.
I just wanted to say thank you guys very much for having us. This has been very informative. We have been in the works to launch our first data science / informatics pathway in JCPS, and we do have a school that's going to be taking that on and hopefully to expand that. We do currently have 14 high schools that do have some type of computer science programs in those high schools, and we're looking to kind of expand on those. Another great thing we have going on that we're really working hard to prepare our kids for internships and apprenticeships. So I think last year we had like 15 to 20 high school kids that were out actually working in companies. So attending meetings like this, information systems, is great. So that really helps us guide our teachers on where we need to be pushing. And we're really pushing in JCPS to kind of be very proactive instead of reactive to the technology industry and what's going on, so we make sure our kids are prepared for those positions when they come out. So thank you guys very much for having us. This has been great.
No, and I just want to give you a chance to wrap up here. And Tyler, if you want to talk a little bit about some of the local stuff that you guys have going on, I'd give you that space too. Couple things to be looking out for. As I mentioned at the beginning of this, April 7th and 8th, we are hosting an Accelerating AI and Data Automation Conference. It's going to be all virtual. It's going to be just 11 to 2 p.m. because, hey, we've all got a little fatigue of these things, but there's so much interest and so many interesting things to talk about. So we're going to be highlighting, we got some great national speakers coming. Just got a confirmation today of a really cool thought leader. So that'll be fun. And then also on, might get this wrong, I think it is March 24th, we're doing another Lunch and Learn. And actually March 25th, also we're partnering with Leadership Louisville. We're going to be talking about just these beginning pieces of, all right, well, what does this look like in different sectors? So we'll welcome you guys to those things. So Barry, final thoughts. I always want to give people a couple minutes when these Lunch and Learns to actually go to the bathroom before their next Zoom meeting.
Okay. Thanks for the time. I just want to say, Ben, I really appreciate you. I love the vision that you guys share with the community. The idea of Louisville becoming the most digitally trained, certified, and skilled city in the country. I want to be a part of it. Anything I can do to help, I'm all in. Because if you guys have so much innovation and heart in Louisville that if it can't happen here, it can't happen anywhere is the way I look at it. And I want it to happen here in Southern Appalachia where I am too. So all in with Louisville and the digital future.